And we're back again. Thank you very much for still being with us here on the Daily Debate. I'm still joined in with Dr. Hatem Raslan, who is Gambia's ambassador at large, the Economic Affairs. Thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you.
As I said earlier at the introduction, it's very important for us to focus on the Egyptian economy and the critical stage that the whole entire world is going through in light of COVID-19. And that's why I would like to start with that. What has COVID-19 or how has COVID-19 affected the Egyptian economy, whether positively or negatively in general?
Of course, surely it was unexpected pandemics that affect the whole world and the whole economy of the whole world. Unfortunately, we are not yet end. We are expecting another peak, not in Egypt. I mean, generally, the reports say that it's not yet end to come to a finalize that this how it's impact and how can we go away from it. But I take off what's happening today. I think we have taken some good measurements compared to other countries. Of course, it affects our economy, but I think with all what happened, we have to believe that it is a message, and we need to go over it, and we need to learn from it. Okay, the Egyptian authorities have taken a lot of measurements, the lockdown, the curfews and stuff, and of course it helped to eliminate the pandemic, and then I think we have, of course, a lot of negative things, but we have a lot of positive
positive things. And what is your take on what some analysts would describe that possibly what benefited Egypt during this pandemic is the strong economic or strict economic reform program that it has been implementing during the past 5 years. And along line with that, the amount of mega projects and projects on all levels that has been working and upgrading and developing during the past 5 years. Do you think that this is true, and possibly without this economic reform program we would be at a much more difficult stage?
100%. I agree with with what you said. 100%. If we have not been taking all that economic reform since February, to be specified, 2016. And one of the main issues was liberalizing the hard currency. It really had a great impact today because since that date, the number of exports have risen magnificently, and the imports for Egypt have also decreased. So at the end, all these mega projects, what we are seeing, have created huge numbers of employment all over Egypt. And without that reform, God forbid, I'm sure we will be in a worse situation.
Yes, we will be. And I'm glad you mentioned about the decrease of imports, and maybe you can explain to viewers who are not, from an economic background. When the imports percentage decrease, does that give an indication that there is more production and development and self-sufficiency, or it's not really a direct reflection? How is it described?
I describe basically to a normal viewer to understand how that reflects. When you import less, that means that you are producing locally. That's why, because if we are getting all our need from Far East and Europe, that means we are not doing anything locally.
Yes, we're not producing.
So if we are producing locally a lot of things, and this is happening now, in all the sectors we are producing, and all this because of the reforms, because of the incentive that's giving to the investors. So that means we are producing what we eat, we are producing what our medication, we are producing our daily life. So that's eliminate our import, because the basic, the simple thing, most of our needs are fulfilled in daily basis. So if I said that our imports have declined a big number, that means that we are in the right path. And in the other area, our exports have also gone greater than before. That means that also we're exporting our goods.
And at better quality. I'm glad you also mentioned health and food supplies, because there are also positive reports saying that the agricultural field in Egypt was doing very great, and we're seeing even oversupply with products. Speaking of exports, high quality standard fruits, vegetables, and even fishes and so forth. And in terms of medicine, Egypt has always been known to be producing medicine at a much more cheaper price than abroad. Actually, you'd be aware that when anybody's coming to Egypt, they would always have a list of medicines that they say it's only and it's very cheap for them. But the pandemic itself, has that shaken up these two fields, or
okay, let me talk about the food stuff, not the medication. I think our number got greater because the lockdown in most of the countries has direct effects
of course,
on agriculture.
They depend on food imports.
Exactly, and this is a daily consumed things. And to be frank with you, most of the lockdown, people are sitting more in homes and they're consuming, they're eating more food.
I can relate,
so that's...
We're all going to see dietitians after this is over, and possibly psychologists for some of us as well.
So most of... I can give you just one figure from there, you know. We export till, I think, last month, 3 million tons of foodstuff. And this is a huge number.
And that's like a surplus without affecting because they're saying you're 100 million, so you probably would eat a lot.
That means that
we're on the safe side. We're
very safe side. We have fulfill our local needs, and then we after all that, we export 3 million tons of foodstuff to the whole countries. And this is great for us because we are generating a lot of hard currency from this exports.
Also, among the developments and changes or reformation programs that has been applied in Egypt during the past couple of years and has been reflected very positively in light of this pandemic is technology and the use of technology. Whether it's, I mean, who would have known that Egypt's employees would be working from home or schools would switch to online learning? So if we're going to talk about generally, how has technology affected the economy positively or negatively?
Of course, it's really affect us very positively. And I start with the infrastructure.
Yes.
Can you imagine 5 years ago we had a very bad network system. We have a very bad energy system. We're talking of the energy, the electricity, which is for me the most important thing. Because we back in Africa, for example, I'm talking of the Gambia, we have really bad situation when it comes to the electricity. So I admire how the government to reform the electricity sector
and switch to energy
and switch to energy, exactly. So that reflects positively because students like my kids are getting their education at home. They are using a lot of panels and platforms to get their education. Workers and, for example, executive staff are working from home. They don't need to be at offices.
We can hold Zoom conferences.
Exactly.
Believe me, it's we're liking it. You know, we would want to stay like that.
Exactly. Yes.
You don't have to dress up and go to work, and you're doing perfectly fine.
And I will tell you something. I would really love the next interview to be a Zoom meeting like
that would be that would be very interesting. Except school levels, primary, you need to send them to school. We're doing all the homework for them. But I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing. A country that had suffered from 2 revolutions and corruption and just basically everything we did renovation, was able to pick up itself at a very fast pace, not looking into the future that at any point who would have imagined a pandemic was going to fear us off and lock us down. Many countries are suffering billions of dollars in losses. Egypt, and according to economic reports, is doing on the contrary great. What is the secret recipe here from your perspective?
This is the reform program that started in 2016, the mega project which is already on, the implementation of projects that have been accommodating millions of employment. Our great reforms in all the sectors have drive the private sector from all over the world to come and do direct investments here. All that's what we are seeing today. That's why Egypt
is doing great. Now, when you spoke about direct investments or even indirect investments, again, I would like to focus on what also has changed and helped to increase investment in Egypt is the fact that the investment laws or the legislative reforms were undertaking in this perspective that had helped attract foreign investors at a much easier pattern and regulations?
Because we have the House of Representatives have imposed a lot of status that made the investment easier, made the registration, for example, of industrial projects easier for foreign investors. This was not happening before. Before you get registered to a factory, for example, you will take ages before you get registered. Now the process is too easy.
Too much complications.
Too much bureaucracy.
Paperwork.
Exactly. Now it's less than a month. If you are a really serious investor, you get all your papers done and you can operate. So all that reforms have reflect greatly in direct and indirect investment.
We're going to get, of course, to Africa and more details, interestingly, so we can find out what's happening in Gambia on a general perspective. But again, let's talk about the new Suez Canal and whether it's in light of COVID-19 or even before that. How do you see that big hub being there and ports that is going to be attracting people from around the world, useful for the Egyptian economy? Because a lot of people, they do not interpret the numbers. When they say today the Suez Canal had, I don't know how many tons of, they don't understand what is that simplified into. What does that mean? That
means that we are functioning in a good way. We're still exporting our goods. That's why a lot of vessels are coming and coming in and out. So that means we are still alive with all this. We're still here. And of course, we have a drop in our growth rate, but than expected. And we are still doing the best in the growth rate.
And even, pardon me to interrupt you, even Egypt, speaking of lockdown, it was from the few countries that did not have a complete lockdown.
Exactly.
We had factories and work still going on, but with regard to the precautionary measures ongoing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
that helped us, really.
That's the thing, because a lot of people were not aware.
Okay, the direct lockdown came to the tourism and the aviation sector.
And we're just going to ask you about the tourism and the aviation sector. We do know that we're talking about billions of pounds, and maybe that's why Egypt had asked for a fund for the COVID-19 crisis. But again, how do you see that being altered and sort of dealing with? Because as you said, the pandemic is not over yet. So, and the complete lockdown is not going to happen forever.
Exactly.
What do you think generally in your head could be a possible plan for or steps?
The tourism? Anyway, let me start with what the government have done with the tourism and aviation sector. They have done a lot of measurement, especially to these two sectors, because they are directly affected. So by postponing their loans, if they're taken from the banks, asking the banks to leave them, make things easier for them when it comes to overheads, governmental overheads like taxes and whatever. So it helps them to still alive. If you can see a few days ago, we have opened up again the hotels and the tourism sector.
At a capacity of 25%, I believe.
Exactly, and that's okay. That's what keep them alive. So I believe that we cannot stand the lockdown, especially in these two sectors. So, and you can see when the ban is lifted, you can see planes and tourism. Ukraine have sent a lot of airplanes recently to Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh, which is a good sign that things will come gradually to
and I'm sure people are like really bored of staying at home. Everybody wants to kick off to the beach. I mean, we've seen photos in London and in the US.
Paris and New York City.
Overpacked, Paris and the cafes, and everybody was like overpacked. So I do understand that people will be, we're going to be going on living our lives with the precautionary measures and social distancing and wearing masks, but still carrying on with our lives. Now, the foreign investors, of course, have made also a strong light back in light of the growing confidence of the Egyptian economy and the reports that have been, and even the upgrading of Egypt's rating at S&P to, I'm not sure if it's B, plus B or something like that. Is that an indication? What gives a country a positive indication to investors that, okay, let's come and invest here in Egypt? Is it the rumors and the reports, or is it the vast market?
It's really the numbers. That's why the IMF and they give us that rating, because of we are going on the right path. Egypt is going in the right path, and they are serious about the reforms, and they are serious about the agenda. Our agenda starts from 2016.